So it's my pleasure to welcome and introduce Mike Smalls this morning. Mike originally owned and operated Greenway Landscaping, specializing in residential design and installation for over 33 years. He's now using his retirement to include beekeeping and backpacking and to raise awareness of the importance of biodiversity and habitat restoration. Like me, Mike is a member of Climate Action Sarnia-Lambton, where we bring Mike's expertise for reforestation projects to local parks and schools. Currently, Mike is assisting with establishing mini forest projects at several schools in Sarnia and Lambton County. His passion for nature and the environment is an integral part of his life. So Mike, welcome. We're looking forward to your presentation.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. Oh, got to stay here. I'm a bit of a wanderer, so I'll do my best to stay right here. As Alan mentioned, I mean, we all get kind of, our careers occupy a lot of our time in raising families. And sometimes it's a little bit later on in our life that we have the opportunity to pursue what has probably always been in there. And whether it be music or painting, and for me it was the environment. And I'm pretty engaged in it. I do a lot of backpacking. I spend a lot of time in the forest, a lot of paddling, and I try to find myself as deeply into the woods as I can, which is becoming harder and harder in today's world. So I'm going to kind of cover, before I start, what I am, what I'm not, and what this presentation is and what it isn't. I'm not an entomologist. I'm not an expert on bugs. I don't study butterflies. I don't really know a lot about them. Maybe there's probably some people that are partaking in this presentation this morning that know considerably more than me. What I am is I'm a passionate person that realizes that, well, like, what's happening like right in front of our eyes right now. What the presentation isn't, it's not about climate change. Still hasn't been accepted by everyone. Yeah, it's you know, there's science attached to it. And to be truthful, it can be paralyzing thinking about what you can even maybe do to alter it and change it. And so in being paralyzed, you don't do anything. But biodiversity loss is, it's measurable. It's not a science. Like, everyone in this room can remember frogs in the ditches, turtles, fireflies, 400 or 500 swallows sitting on the hydro wires. I mean, that's not science. That's real numbers. And so biodiversity loss can be considered paralyzing as well. But the neat thing about dealing with biodiversity loss, I guess if there is a positive to it, is that we can do it right here. Like, we can make changes on Rosedale Ave, Grand Rapids Parkway, Exmo Street, Assiniboine Crescent. Like, we can deal with biodiversity loss like right here, starting this spring. And so it doesn't have to be paralyzing. It can be just easily attainable in our little microcosm, our little world here. So, and this presentation it's my thoughts, it's my opinions, and it may not be shared by everyone. And but I am really passionate about it, and hopefully it'll show. So in the presentation, bring it home, meaning, you know, biodiversity loss is happening around the world. I mean, in places, sure, you know, the Amazon and Africa and the Arctic and whatnot, but it's happening right here as well. So we can deal with it locally. Because this stuff is happening like right in our world. Like, I mean, who would have thought that in our lifetime, we would have seen the demise and possibly the elimination of the monarch butterflies. Like, it's just, it's hard to imagine, that some of the things that we just took for granted, it's slowly happening right in front of our eyes. And it's no surprise. I mean, where do we think nature's going? Like, there's no tree cover left. Like, it's all agricultural land. If it isn't industrial and it isn't urban sprawl, it's agricultural. And it's incredible that, actually, it's kind of incredible that there's anything left, to be honest with you. As migrating birds are coming into our territory, that they can find some food, because there's just so little left. So what is it? What exactly is biodiversity, and why should you care? Well, it's everything around us. Actually, could we shut some more lights off?
Sure.
It's the water we drink, it's the food we eat, it's the air that we breathe. It's literally everything. And it's above the ground, it's on the ground, and it's below the ground. Like every moth or every little creature that ends up in your living room, instead of grabbing the fly swatter, maybe grab a jar. Like, everything is connected together, and something counts on that item that you maybe just squished in your kitchen. Something counts on it, and it counts on something else. This was a picture I took. This is only a rock. This is a rock, like maybe 3 feet by 3 feet, north of Peterborough, when I was canoeing last August. And the biodiversity that is on that stone, like all the fungi and the mosses and the bacterium, and it's just, it looks like a shot from space. It looks like a forest, but it's just on a stone. And that is biodiversity. That is everything working in unison together. And for me, biodiversity is motion. If you don't have motion in your yard, you don't have biodiversity. Like, motion, and I don't mean cardinals coming to your sunflower seed feeder. I mean, like, items that are coming in and landing in the trees, maybe nesting, maybe eating bugs or caterpillars or something in your yard. So for me, biodiversity is like motion. And we all get excited with motion. Like, if we're sitting at the kitchen table and something flies by the window, we look, it catches our eye. So what does it not look like? So this is the typical project that this is what I did for 35 years. This is one of my projects. And it satisfied my clients. It gave them color, texture, a place to sit, the hardscaping, and it satisfied all the desires of me and you, like, of us. But it satisfied nothing else in that property. It's like a buffet table where you've laid out the plates and the napkins and the cutlery. The food never shows up. There's nothing there to eat in that yard for anything. There's blue spruce, there's a red Japanese maple, cobblestone. Wonderful. The only movement in that yard is going to be periodically, maybe when the owners come out and sit on those chairs. Again, deadscaping. There's nothing, and again, these are only my own opinions, but we need to get over the perfect lawn. It becomes a toxic wasteland. There's no habitat there for anything. Wow. Holy cow. That could be an oasis around that home with just even planting some trees. And instead, we put thousands of dollars into sprinkler systems so we can irrigate a non-native grass. And then, gosh forbid, if a weed should pop up there. And we all have, even if you don't own a home, if there's some people in this room that don't own a home, maybe you live in a condo or an apartment, we all have the ability to make a little change. Even little changes. And we'll talk about that as the presentation goes on. So what can it look like? And again, these are just some examples. This is an entire front yard. And again, we need to, the perfect lawn, the turf, the grass. I mean, it's coming at us from like 250 years ago, like a colonialism, like, it was a sign of opulence and wealth, having a lawn. This is like a native grass in the front, butterfly milkweed with the orange flowers, some logs, some rocks, white pine in the back. Like, I find that absolutely stunning and interesting. And what these properties give you is everything that I was giving my clients. Again, color, texture, fragrance, movement. But one thing that these are giving your property that I never provided much on my designs, was for the pollinators. So there's everything that these gardens can give you and what they don't require. So how this presentation began is I have honeybees, and I mean, it became pretty clear that, there was problems with the agricultural industry and honeybees and sprays and nicotinoids, et cetera. So what got me started on doing the presentation on biodiversity was I wanted to create an environment where, I couldn't keep my bees on my property. Obviously they fly, but if I could reduce the amount of times that they needed to leave my property and go look somewhere else, then all the better. Because the pollinators, let's look at essential workers in a different lens. Look at the emphasis that we put on essential workers during the COVID times. They were there all the time looking after our best interests and putting themselves in harm's way. Pollinators do it every single day of their lives. They are the essential workers, and they don't ask a lot in return. And without them, we're in a heap of trouble. So what an angiosperm is, that's a flowering tree that produces like a fruit. And there's 300,000 species of angiosperms in the world. Like almost everything you can think of probably has a flower or a fruit. And pollinators are doing 90% of them. And again, we need to, not only are the pollinators critical for us, probably maybe 1/3 or half of what some of us have already ingested this morning in our breakfasts probably as a result of pollinators. But beyond that, there's proof that if we take us out of the equation, let's not get selfish and think of pollinators as all about us and how it's going to affect us. It's going to affect life, So who are they? Obviously, the logical one is bees. Lots of native bees out there. The honeybee that you get your honey from is, I'm sure many of you know, but it's not a native bee. It's a European bee. So the native bees, mostly of them are solitary. They live in debris. They live on the ground, maybe in the hollow stems of your perennial plants in your garden, which, by the way, you shouldn't cut back in the fall. Try to refrain from cleaning up your gardens in the fall. Just leave them messy, because there's probably a lot of items living in that debris trying to get through the winter. Obviously, it's the most recognizable, and then the adorable bumblebee as well. Butterflies, kind of an unintended carrier of pollen. They're really there for the nectar. They're not really intending to carry pollen with them, but they do. They gather it up on their legs and their feet. There's some here that shocked me when I got into it, and this is one of them, moths. Wouldn't have even thought of moths as a pollinator, and they're a huge pollinator. Preference given to nighttime fragrance, light-colored flowers, and so many, 3,300 species of them in Ontario. So again, you find a moth fluttering in your home, See if you can take it outside. And on that note, please don't have outside lights on, like spotlights that the moths fly around, around, around. They become exhausted, they die, and it's senseless. It's a senseless death. Yellow lights are better than white. Beetles, that's called a blister beetle. That's that's a Rudbeckia, black-eyed Susan flower. Beetles are a big pollinator. Who would have thought flies? Like, that's a little drone fly. And there's dozens and dozens of species of flies in Ontario. And again, they're there for the nectar. They're not trying to collect pollen, but they got hairy bodies. So they land on a flower, they scurry around gathering up nectar, and they gather up pollen. It's almost like Velcro, and the pollen sticks to them. And of course, mainly just the hummingbird is the main pollinator when it comes to the birds. This is where pollinators really got exciting for me. I mean, I just thought I was bringing in moths and butterflies and had, again, I should have known. Biodiversity is very complex. They bring in eggs. They lay eggs. Moths and butterflies lay eggs. Okay, that's great. But eggs turn into caterpillars. Some of them are pretty, some of them are small, some of them are large. But the really neat thing about getting these pollinators on your property and them laying eggs and those eggs hatching into caterpillars is, if you don't have caterpillars, you don't have biodiversity on your property yet. It's the building key to life on your property. Because without caterpillars, you won't have breeding birds. It just doesn't happen. Those chickadees that are taking sunflower seeds from your feeder, or the Baltimore Oriole that's taking off with a mouthful of sugar water, they're not feeding it to the young. So on these charts, the lime green lines indicate the percentage of caterpillars for each of those birds. So like even in the top left, 40% of a baby woodpecker's diet is caterpillars. Crows, like go right across, warblers on the top far right, orioles, cardinals, they're all feeding their young caterpillars. They're not feeding them crickets or spiders or sunflower seeds or suet. It's all caterpillars. And if you don't have them on your property, you're not going to have nesting birds. Chickadees is third row down, second from the left. Like 79% of the diet of a baby chickadee is caterpillars. And interesting, if you look at hummingbirds in the bottom right-hand corner, far right-hand corner, 92% of their diet is flies. If you have a pollinating garden, as the previous slides show you, one of the big pollinators is flies. If you have nectar on your property, you're going to have the flies, and you're going to be feeding your hummingbirds. And you won't necessarily need the sugar water. So how many? I mean, just how many caterpillars does it take to make one nest of chickadees? So say an average nest of 3 to 4 babies. You won't believe the number. I mean, I won't even ask anybody to take a guess because I don't want to. Anyways, that's how many caterpillars. Now, keep in mind, some caterpillars are as big as a grain of rice, right? I mean, this isn't 9,000 swallowtail caterpillars that are as big as the baby itself. So there's a woman, she did her PhD on chickadees, and so she sat and she counted how many times they were coming to a nest in a given day, and it was 450 times a day that the male and the female parents were coming back and forth to that nest. It's incredible that there's any chickadees when you think of how much food they need. You know, and I know there's a movement on with with the bird-friendly community or committee for building codes to change for reflective glass on the windows, for feral cats, and I totally agree with all of them. But these adult birds won't be hitting these windows if they're not even able to be born, if they don't even get out of the nest. So this is a map. This was in Washington, D.C., and it was a subdivision. And the star, the yellow star, is where the nest was, the chickadee nest. And that was the range of the feeding grounds of that one nest. So those are native trees. Like those are areas indicating the gray. So the darker blue, maybe there's a multitude of native items in that yard. And then the lighter gray indicates areas where the parents were going out and grabbing caterpillars and taking them back to the nest. So you can see how critical it is to have some native items out there. Like even just one tree on a property. You know, I do want to make it clear by the time I leave here that, you know, I'm not asking people, it'd be great if you did, but I'm not asking people to go home and like remove their front yards. But just a couple of items on the property can make a difference. And sadly, they starved. They didn't make it. There wasn't enough caterpillars. So how do we get started? Now that we're all excited, we want to do this. Well, you can start at a community level, which is something like a group might adopt. And this is what Alan had indicated. This is what we're doing at the schools, is we're putting in mini forests. We're rehabilitating or reforesting like small plots on the properties. Like a typical forest, the natural evolution of a typical forest is about 80 to 100 years. So by that I mean, like if you took some land and you just left it dormant, like the weeds would grow and the goldenrods, and then you would get the willows, the dogwoods would come in, and then after the willows there might be the birch and the aspen, and eventually into the maples and the oaks. But that can take like a long time to happen. And the idea behind these mini forests is what you do is you create, like you tightly pack native material. So what this mini forest concept is you take a piece of land, maybe say if you had a property the size of this room, and you might plant 45 trees in here. Like not one there and one over there and one there and one there. You're mass planting. What you're trying to do is you're trying to recreate a forest. So you would come in and say in this area here, you might plant, say you planted 35 or 40 upper species trees like maples and oaks. And then you might plant 15 or 20 mid-story, meaning like viburnums, redbuds, witch hazels. And then you plant low-story items, like some of the, well, I guess there's shrub roses and some of the dogwoods and whatnot. And then what happens in this forest is everything's forced to grow really fast because it's really tight together. So things grow quicker. Some will perish, but that is what a forest is. You don't clean it up, you leave the debris there. And what happens within this area is inside this little mini forest is the light conditions are different, the humidity is different, there's no wind inside. And so you've created this little miniature little habitat, like possibly right inside an urban center. This could be a city park. It could be a back corner of a school grounds. The projects that I'm involved in this year, there's 5 schools that are on board right now. And we're creating these little mini forests. We're going in and last year with Climate Action, we did 2 stages at Wiltshire Park. And we have a really big project lined up for this coming spring. Stage 1 is in with the town of Plimpton, Wyoming. And so what we do is we get volunteers to come out. You know, I take care of all the finding of the trees, you know, getting them into Sarnia. And then groups come out. It can be Boy Scouts, it can be organizations like yourselves that come out on a Saturday, and we plant these trees. With the school kids, I'm sure any of these schools would accept volunteers to come out. I mean, Queen Elizabeth II, Holy Rosary in Wyoming, London Road School, Great Lakes Secondary School. I'm doing it's there, it's happening. It's not really big, but it's going to get bigger. And Alexander Mackenzie School's got a fantastic one happening. So it's just, you're planting them high density. And I mean, here's an example of one that has kind of like a design to it. I mean, but when you see the next picture, how this turns out, I mean, this can happen in a school ground. This can happen in a city park. Like just like 2 years later. Now, keep in mind, this is probably in a tropical location. It's certainly not it's not in Ontario, but this could happen in, say, 4 years in our environment. And imagine if that inside little area was an outdoor learning area for school kids. Like imagine doing something like that in the back corner of a church property or a municipal property or a city park. Gosh, we have well over 110 parks in the city, and nobody uses them. The only thing that generally touches them is maybe the rubber tires on the lawn cutting equipment. And we don't go in there, but we have them, but they're not being utilized. You know, and we jump in our vehicles and we drive to the outskirts of the city so we can find nature. We go to the pinery so we can walk on the trails, you know, or maybe to go to Lauren Henderson. It can happen right in our backyards. This kind of stuff could be like, you'd be walking or riding your bikes to items like this right within our city. So this is an organization, what this project was, and again, it's just transforming useless barren land into like these biodiverse forests. That's 2019. Again, it's in India, so it's a tropical location, but like Central Park now. These are doable projects in our own community. Like we are blessed with so much land in this country. We have boulevards, we have medians, and we have so much public land, and we cut it, and it's a barren buffet. Maybe the clicker's not working. Can you advance that for me? So that's what you can do at a community level, or as a group or an organization. But what can we do as individuals? Yeah. We can start changing some of our yards. And to clarify, having a native garden doesn't mean chaos. It doesn't have to look like you just took a package of seeds and threw it on the ground. Like that right-hand garden on the right-hand slide, that's 100% native. That could be any of our backyards, and we'd be thrilled to go for a walk through that, and go there for a coffee, versus the left-hand slide, which was, it was just grass. And we cut it and we water it, and our summers are gonna get hotter and they're gonna get drier, and we're gonna be watering even more. And if we get tired of dragging hoses, then we're gonna put in sprinkler systems. And it's not necessary. Slide's kind of dark on the left, I understand that. But again, a before and after. Like to look out your window and see that, I think it'd be amazing. I think it'd be incredible. Rather than looking out on our green lawn. Again, a little property down in Cromwell Street. And again, converted, easily converted, right? The one on the left, globe views, looks like it could be ribbon grass, then some hostas. And now you got life on the right-hand side. You got movement in the garden. Maybe that's too ambitious for you. What about our boulevards? I hope I'm around someday that it's accepted that when you turn onto a street, that's what you see running the whole length of the street. Like, I think it's absolutely stunning. It's food for so many items. It's easy on the eyes. It's quiet on Saturdays. People aren't cutting grass. And easily done by any one of us if we have a little boulevard. But it takes some will. So these are my gardens. Now, I have more land than maybe some of you do, but the reason I'm showing this is when I used to do landscape designing, I had form, I had color, I had texture, but I liked to use patches of color. And so I wanted to show you that a native garden can have like a band of blue, and then a band of yellow, and then a band of white. It doesn't have to look, again, like I say, like a prairie, where it just, sometimes in the fall, it looks like if you threw a cigarette butt in there or something, the whole thing would burst into flames. Like it can have some structure and form to it. So there's my bees in the back left-hand corner, the beehives, all very colorful. And this is all a native garden there. And again, I just want you to see the clustering of the same items together. And this is only 2 years old. This is only a 2-year-old garden. And it's never had a drink of water from me. Like all last summer in all that heat, I didn't drag a hose once. If they're native, they've gone through this for millennium. They can take it. We're not trying to bring something into an environment that doesn't really belong there. And I'm really proud of my really crappy lawn. Right? I mean, there's flickers eating there. There's all kinds of birds eating on the lawn without being poisoned. Again, it's just only my opinion, but we shouldn't shudder if we have a dandelion on our lawn. I mean, oh my gosh, we really need to move from that. I mean, the bees it's a big part of the pollinator first thing in the spring for them. It's really critical and not a bad looking flower. These are all native flowers. I mean, that big hibiscus up there, like swamp mallow. I mean, that flower is like 4.5 inches across. And these are all native. Gentian in the bottom left, evening primroses, the red of the cardinal flowers. The hummingbirds just go crazy on that. So maybe that's too much, or maybe you don't have that amount of space. Then consider a keystone species. So what a keystone species is, the ecosystem really depends on it, or it can really depend on it. So what I mean by a keystone species, and some examples, like 5% of our native plants support 75% of the caterpillars. So you don't need to be going to a garden center and dropping $100 and coming home with 25 different things. It's honorable and it's better than non-native, but if you have limited space, get the plants that have the biggest impact. Like the second one down, like 14% support 90% of our caterpillars. So the keystone plants, if you have limited space, can be really critical or very valuable to us. So here's some charts I just want to show you. On the left-hand column, in the trees, just trees, we're not talking shrubs or perennials here, but in the trees, those are the keystone plants on the left-hand side. And the ones I've highlighted, number one by a long shot is oak trees. Like oak trees they're the holy grail when it comes to biodiversity and caterpillars. And it's a shame that we don't, Sarnia has a thing about oak trees. We don't cherish them like we should. We find them a pain. We gripe about the leaves that we're not able to compost. They're so valuable to our ecosystem. Number two on the list is anything in the cherry family. Black cherries, choke cherries, anything in the cherry family. Number three, I didn't highlight it. It's salix, which is the willows. Willows are huge, but of course, most of us aren't going to put a willow tree on our property. You know, I just shuddered when I seen, if you can picture Maudlin Road right near the 402, between Michigan and the 402, on that side, on the east side of Maudlin Road, there was like 6 beautiful, big, massive willow trees that had been there forever. And my gosh, it's like the moon now. Like they're all gone. It's incredible how much food left with those trees. And number 4 on the list is betula, the birch. And so look at the numbers, so Quercus is the oak on the far left. And then the number of caterpillars that count on is 436 caterpillars, 436 different types of caterpillars. The prunus, 340, the birch, I think it's 184 or 189. Like that's different kinds of caterpillars. And if you don't have caterpillars, you don't have nesting birds. And we all love birds. Like it seems like a win-win. We love trees and we love birds. On the right-hand column, these are perennials. And those are the top winners for the perennials. And the very first one is sunflowers, and not the sunflowers that we how do I describe them? They're not native. You know, the big flower heads? They're sunflowers, but they're not native sunflowers. But like there's 56 types of moths or butterflies that only need sunflowers. And the next one down is the goldenrod, 42. Like there's 42 caterpillars, there's 42 moths and butterflies that it's not like they're choosing to go to a goldenrod because they think they need it. They need it like a monarch needs a milkweed. And number 3 on the list is asters. Black-eyed Susans are highlighted. Coreopsis is highlighted. And the reason I highlighted the one way down the bottom in on the right-hand column, coneflower, we all have coneflowers. And I do too in my garden. And I do have a mix of non-native and native. But coneflowers, there's only 6 butterflies. There's only 6 butterflies or moths that go to coneflowers. So again, if you get limited space, you might as well put in the gold medal winners, or the silver or the bronze.
Is milkweed on that list?
No, again, because there's only one. Yeah, so what it was going for on that list was the items that provide the most value. And milkweed, of course, is super valuable to the monarchs, but if you're looking at the monetary, or the numbers, and actually the oak number has been upgraded. So the chart before you just seen, I think it was 437 to 400, it's 557 species of caterpillars. Now these caterpillars aren't falling on your picnic tables. So don't shudder if you think, oh my gosh, I don't want caterpillars on my property. They're ooey, they're gooey, they're kind of gross. If you got caterpillars, you're gonna have birds. It's a win-win. So get the right trees and grab yourself a good pair of binoculars. So what this is this is shrubs. And again, the left-hand column, thank you. The left-hand column, the top one is alders, and it's a great for moths and butterflies, but it grows really big. You don't want it on your property. But number 2, 3, 4, 5, like the top 4 are service berries. And service berries, I'm going to show you a picture of them. We should all have service berries. Like they're gorgeous. And following down, so there's, if you follow it across, kind of brought a pointer. On the right-hand column, there's 125 moths and butterflies that use service berries. Like just a service berry, 125 moths and butterflies. Like your yard could be like just like a little biodiverse area with the right plants. And then as you move down, you get into the dogwoods. Pagoda dogwood, beautiful. Looks like a Japanese maple. It's got green leaves, doesn't have red leaves. Multi-stem, tiered, beautiful. And it's got 118 moths and butterflies will go to it. So these are just keystone plants. These are just having the right plants. So that's a service berry. Like it's doable for anybody's yard. Silver bark, beautiful bark, white blossoms early in the spring, a nice looking leaf, fruit that the birds just gobble up like Smarties, and then a great fall color. The fall color is orange and red. Like it's a win-win, probably 10, 12 feet in height. And I don't want to skip out on some of the other shrubs, right? I don't want you to leave here today thinking that we need to have a keystone shrub. High bush cranberries, again, it's another beautiful native shrub. There's the flower, there's the fall color and the fruit. And these 2 moths only go to viburnums. They won't go to a service berry necessarily. They won't go to your forsythia. Well, really nothing goes to a forsythia. So 2 things that you can take from the presentation as we go through: caterpillars. Remember one word, caterpillars. And the thing with the keystone is I don't want you to get hung up on just keystone plants. They're super important, but there is other shrubs that are doing a whole lot of good as well. And this is just perennials again. Goldenrods and asters. And before you shudder and think goldenrod, they're allergenic, they're not. You don't get allergies from goldenrod. It's a myth. You don't. The pollen's too heavy. It's moist and it's too heavy and it doesn't float in the air. So don't hesitate to put in some goldenrod. And I will tell you that there's probably 12 species of goldenrod that are native to this area. And some of them grow like clumps of hostas. Like they don't run under the ground. They stay just neat and tidy. Someone mentioned to me earlier today, just before we got started here, that they tried to put in some native perennials, didn't make for good neighbors. And that is the problem with sometimes going native, is it can cause some grief in the neighborhood. Like if you told someone that you're going to remove your front lawn and put in native plants, they would probably think you lost your mind, and they would think, that the stuff's going to run, it's going to be on my property. But some of these things don't. If you get the right plants, they'll grow like nice clumps of goldenrod. And you might have 115 different types of moths and butterflies on your property. So to the perennials, you got your goldenrods, your asters, they're the gold medal winners, the silver medal winners. But there's a lot of, don't forget all the other creatures that are out there as well. Like meadow rue grows in the shade. There's a low one and a tall one. The low one is maybe 2 feet. The tall one's probably 5. And the white striped moth only goes to meadow rue. So it's really neat. You can almost it's like programming your TV to only have the shows that you want to watch. If you want to see white striped moths on your property, plant meadow rue and you're going to have them. Like you can tailor make your property to what you want to see. So consider alternative choices. I guess when you're going to the garden center and you're buying shrubs, you know, like this is like a semi-formal garden. Like this could be in front of City Hall. This could be in front of Holiday Inn. It could be like a formal garden, and it's 100% native. And consider alternative choices. Like in my life, in my career, I still adore daylilies. Maybe some of you have them. I'm sure some of you have got daylilies. I probably planted, I don't know, 1,000 of these things. Versus landscape coreopsis. Stelladora daylilies flower for about 7 weeks. Coreopsis, 3.5 months. Same height, same width, zero ecological benefit to the daylilies. And my coreopsis is loaded with items all summer long and into the winter when it produces the seed heads. Like the finches and the chickadees, like they're still eating it. They were still there this morning, sitting on my coreopsis. Even on our trees. And I'm guilty as charged. I planted ginkgos and zelkovas and purple beech trees and Japanese maples and so many non-native trees. And I'm not saying I wouldn't have planted them if I know what I know now, but I would have suggested to people alternatives. You know, purple beech, sure, great purple leaf, color to it, but think about how it's affecting. I mean, it's only our eyes. It's only appeasing our desire for, you know, the look. But consider the food impact. Blue oatgrass. I probably planted 5,000 of these things with no benefit to anything ecologically. And little blue stem, it's another blue grass, right? It's a larval host. What a skipper? Skippers are like a kind of a subspecies of butterflies. So it's a host plant for 9 skipper species. Queen bumblebees will overwinter in the base of them. Blue color, maybe not as bright a blue, but the texture is there. Like an easy substitution.
Right? Chapter 12.
Oh, already?
Yeah.
Okay. Butterfly bushes, yep. I planted lots of them. They have copious amounts of nectar, which is great, but it's like you going to the Dairy Queen and having a blizzard. Like there's no proteins in that nectar, there's no amino acids, there's nothing really beneficial, but of course the butterfly is drawn to it because of the sweetness, versus something like a button bush. I mean, that's a pretty stunning flower. Coral bells, same thing, easily substitution into something like prairie smoke, good for pollinators, hummingbirds, same size, same height. So I'm gonna move along, so we're almost done. So if you take anything from this, I guess I would just like to inspire everyone to consider your property like an en route, like a stopover, like a place for food, a habitat. And it can be small, it can be large. Gosh, things out there need some help. And every one of us on our properties can make little changes. And so you make a change on yours, and you maybe plant a tree on yours, you plant a shrub. Like collectively, it can all add up. Like we can't count on municipalities to be reforesting our cities. You know, because I mean, but we could make little changes on our properties. And the wonder, like the mental health of having a native garden. I mean, that's a little tiny praying mantis. It's probably the size of a quarter, which, by the way, I find out now they're not native. Anybody know that? Praying mantises are not native. They came from China. Go figure. But to go out into your properties and go out with a cup of coffee in the morning and walk through your garden, I do every day. Like when my grandkids come to my property, like they're not necessarily running in to watch Netflix, or they're not going in to maybe see what's in the fridge. They're going to the garden. I mean, it's the wonder of it. You know, and when did we as adults, when did we lose that characteristic? When did we lose that awe of looking at a caterpillar and thinking, wow, that's really super cool? And don't underestimate, like I say, the mental health aspect of having a native garden, just getting out and feeling, tasting, and smelling. And again, motion, big part of native gardening for me. Thank you. And that's it. So what time is it?
It's 5 after 12.
Okay, I rambled on way too long, apparently. I don't have any time for questions, unfortunately. Anyways, that's the way I look at myself. Like I can't change the world on my own, right? But if you can make it's easy here. I'm going to go again. Like it's easy to sit on the couch and do nothing. There's no risk to it. When you think of all the big movements that have taken place over the last 80, 90, 100 years, like imagine back in the 1920s or maybe 1910s, I'm not sure when it happened, and someone saying, you know what, I think women have the right to vote. Whoa, what, really? Like, it takes courage to make changes. And if we look at our properties differently and break that mold that we have, it can be better out there. Really quickly.
I have another quick one.
Yep.